It's my pleasure today to introduce Sandra Gonzales. She is originally from Colombia. Her mother has spoken to us in the past, one of her close business partners, and it's an amazing story of leaving Colombia and coming here to start over. You can imagine how challenging it can be to start a business from scratch, but when you're doing it in a new country in a second language, it's extremely impressive to me the things that Sandra has accomplished in her young life. She's lived in Utah for the past 17 years. She's a member of the Utah Society of Professional Journalists and the editor and partner of Mundo Hispano newspaper, which is the first Spanish language newspaper in Salt Lake, in all of Utah, right?
Yes.
It's the largest Hispanic Latino print media in Utah, and she's been an integral player in the growth of this company. She's also the Vice President of Hispanic Marketing and Consulting, where she plays a key role in the developing and implementing strategic marketing plans tailored specifically to Hispanic and Latino population. You can imagine this is a really growing area in our community and something that needs to be done in a professional way, and she lends to that effort. She's been very involved with the Hispanic community since the launching of the newspaper in 1993, and she serves in different boards and commissions, including the Hogle Zoo Community Advisory Board and the Commission on Child Business Care. She also has a passion for soccer. She was one of the first to play, as a woman, to play soccer in her home country when it wasn't really considered a ladies' sport yet. She strongly supports the Hispanic youth, and in 2001 she created SLY Mundo Hispano, which is the first 100% Hispanic Latino soccer team to play in Utah Youth Soccer Association. So please, and she's also a certified referee and holds a D license. I don't know what that means. So you'll explain that to us, I hope. Please help me in welcoming Sandra Gonzales.
Thank you. Let me see. Can you guys hear me okay? Yes? And I hope you don't get any close noise or... Okay, sounds great. Well, some group, I hope nobody here was in my previous lecture, so you guys won't be bored to death to hear me say the same thing over and over again. But just like when they introduced me, I was born and raised in beautiful Colombia. I was born in Bogota. I lived in my home country until the age of 6, something around that, when my mom was named as Consul of Colombia in Ecuador. So we moved to Ecuador, lived there for 9 years, and came back to my home country, lived there for 7. My mom used to work for an American bank in 1991 when the drug dealer war was at the hardest time, probably. The company that she worked for got threatened by the guerrillas and the narcos, so we ended up coming to Utah. The bank will transfer her to New York, Miami, Los Angeles, but then we said, well, we want to go to Utah because we're LDS. And the bank says, where? There is only a bunch of Mormons there. We're like, yeah, we're one. So we came to Utah. And the beginning was really hard. I didn't speak English, so I still have to think sometimes what I'm going to say after 17 years, but I think I'm doing a lot better. I had to actually study full-time to learn how to speak English. And it was a hard beginning. I was, in my country, I was the what we call the daughter of mommy and daddy. For those who don't know, in our countries, we have maids. So we had a maid that did everything for me. All I had to do was probably make my bed if I really wanted to, but other than that, she made everything. So it was a hard beginning here, a hard start again. And 2 years, a year and a half after we moved here, my mom started saying, okay, I was telling her sometimes, you know what, Mom, maybe we took the wrong decision. Maybe we should have stayed there. Maybe they wouldn't have killed you or kill us, but maybe it was better to stay there. And my mom, I remember she said, you know what, this is not going to be forever, so don't worry, we will get out of this one. And she started seeing what we could do. So she came one day and said, hey, I got it. What about if we put a Spanish newspaper? And I said, you know what? That is a cool idea. I think we should do that. And I always say that I support my mom in all her crazy ideas, but at the end it started working out okay. So we started Mundo Hispano newspaper. We registered the newspaper. We started, my mom had done 3 years of journalism, but never finished because that was in her younger years. I got sick, and then she didn't finish school. So we started with Mundo Hispano in 1992, and it was a hard beginning. Like I said at the beginning, we spent up to 56 hours without going to sleep, because we had a full-time job, and then we were doing the newspaper. Our first newspaper, I always laugh now, but at that point it was like, wow. The first newspaper took us a month to put it together. So you can imagine when the news came out, how good the news was from a month ago. But it was fun. Even though it was hard, it was fun. In 1995, we moved from, actually a year after we started, in 1993, we started with going from a monthly to a weekly. We started with a monthly paper that it was 1,000 copies that we will distribute between Ogden and Payson. And we used to do everything. We used to write the stories, local stories. We used to rewrite what it was, the international stories, and we will just read, or national stories, we will just read what was happening. We will watch the news on the TV and then rewrite the stories. So we didn't have, even though we were spending the money that we brought from our country to run the newspaper, because we were starting, nobody was putting advertising with us. We went to companies and say, hey, we'll put your ad for free just so you give us a try. And then my mom will put her savings into basically printing the newspaper and doing all the stuff that needed to be done. And in 1993, we actually jumped from being a monthly newspaper to being a weekly newspaper. Well, first we were a semi-monthly newspaper, twice a month. And then we went to a weekly newspaper, which we have been for about 7-8 years, a weekly newspaper with 10,000 copies every week that are distributed, again, from the basically the Wasatch Front and Park City and Heber City. And now we have 7 reporters. We have 4 people that does delivery of the newspaper. Thank God. I don't have to drive anymore the whole Wasatch Front. But the great thing about it, even though it was a hard beginning, is the fact that I know every single part of my business. I know what it takes to write a story, how long it takes, how do you do it. I know how long it takes to deliver the newspaper. And something that I do every year is, at least once a year, I go and I do the route of delivering the newspaper. And the reason why I do that is because I want to know my business. I want to know if the newspaper is being delivered in the places that they say it's being delivered. I want to make sure that they are doing a good job doing this. And I want to make sure that when they come and ask me for a raise, it's justified. So if you know your business, doesn't matter what it is, if you know it, make sure you know the different parts of it. I was reading a book not long ago, The Mormon Way of Doing Business, and it was talking about JetBlue and how Mr. Nealman, he always used to take some time and go on flights and talk to the people that was flying that day and see their feedback, and also talk to the crews and talk to everybody from the pilot to the people that clean the plane. And why do you think he does that? Who can tell me why do you think he does that? Come on. Okay, he does that not only because he wants to be able to keep in touch with the customer and know what they think, but also because, again, he wants to know every part of his business. And he wants to make sure that he's in touch with the business and how it changes. And that is a very important part. So anyway, coming back to Mundo Hispano and our beginnings and our long nights, and I always say that my son paid the price for the success that I have achieved, because he was very little. He used to go with me everywhere. It got to the point that one day I went to a meeting with when Didi Corradini was the mayor of Salt Lake City, and she asked me, I didn't take him, I found babysitter for him, and she asked me, where is your son? And I was like, well, I found babysitter for this meeting for him, but I used to drag him around everywhere. He used to sleep sometimes when we had to finish the newspaper, he will sleep at the office where I was working. And then at 6 a.m., I will take him home, and he will stay with his dad, and I will go to work. So I will just take a shower, change, and go to work. Get out. If it was the end of the edition, go out, pick up the newspaper, which at that point was printing to Ella, pick it up, and start delivering the newspaper, go home, crash for about 24, 48 hours sleep to start again. So when people tell me that they're going to start a business because they want to be able to come and go as they want and make more money, I always laugh and I say, you know what, it takes a long time before you can do that. It took me 5 years after we started the business to have my first vacation. And it was a weekend only. It was a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So it takes time. It's hard work. Having your own business, you work harder than anybody else at the beginning. But if you do the right things, and if you work hard at it and you pay the price, it pays off at the end. This year I took a month vacation. I thought I was afraid that my business wasn't going to survive without me, but it did. The interesting thing, it's good to know, but it's bad to know, because now I know that I'm not the only one that can be there and take care of things. So when you're talking about business, it's very important when you're planning your business to take everything into account and create a plan. The best thing that you can create when you're thinking about business is create your business plan. You need to know where you're going. You cannot just take a plan and then say, okay, I'm going to create a business. This is my business. But then you don't know where you're going with your business. And trust me, that's how I started. That's how we started. It was a great idea. But we never did a business plan. My first business plan, we did it about 3-4 years ago. That was the first time that we did the business plan for the newspaper. I wish we would have done it when we started, because it would have saved us a lot of trouble. And it would have saved us a lot of headaches. So that would be one of my advices. You have a great idea, then plan on it and see how it works. Because that will guide you, that will make you see some things, and then you can see if what you have is a great idea and how much effort it's going to take. Be ready to pay the price. It is hard. And I always like to mix a little bit of my story. Maybe the ones that were here when my mom spoke, we have very different ways of doing things. You know, and I like actually to talk a lot about my story, because it brings a reality that people can relate to sometimes. And I always believe that my mom and I say that I always see the glass half full, and she sees this glass half empty, which is good because it brings balance in our business. I'm way too positive. So she brings balance to the middle, and we can find a middle ground. But when we moved here, I was married for 7 years and a half. And I like to say, because I'm an optimistic person, I like to say that I'm a survivor of domestic violence, not a victim of domestic violence. I got divorced, and my daughter was beat up when she was 6 years old after I was divorced. She got beat up by her dad. It was a very tough time in my life, because I never thought my daughter would have to live through that. And you're going to say, well, why is she talking about that? What does it have to do with business? And the reason why I talk about that experience is because it shows you that if I could do it, There was a point in my life when I couldn't hold a job that was as simple as supervising a route of newspapers because I thought I wasn't capable of doing anything. So if I could come up from that and be a successful businesswoman, anybody in this room can do it. Anybody. All you need is to believe in yourself and to work hard at it. So with that, let me go into what is an entrepreneur. And I like this thing because it says it's a term applied to the type of personality. And I like to say more is about the person who's willing to take upon herself, a new venture and accept the full responsibility of their outcome. Whether it is success or failure, you have to be willing to take responsibility for it. Now let me tell you in statistics, about 85% of the business that start closes within the first 5 years. That's the statistics here in the United States. And a lot of the reason why, again, it comes a lot to planning. They didn't know exactly what they were doing. So there is a lot of things that come into business. But if you're willing to take the responsibility of it, and like I said at the beginning, if you're willing to work hard at it, most of the times it will work just fine. So what do you need when you're going to go into business? You need to know, who am I? And that is funny because for me at the beginning, it was very simple because I was a follower. I was really good at the things that I did, but my mom was the one with the ideas, and she was the one that I had to follow and just do whatever she said. About 2.5 years ago, somebody came into my life and started saying, you know what, you need to start being a leader. And my mom started saying, you know what, I'm getting old. I'm not going to be here forever. You need to start taking responsibility of our business and know if it is going to be successful or not. So at that point, I started asking, okay, what am I going to do now? And I say, well, who am I? I know I'm a dreamer. I know I'm a believer. I know I'm an optimistic, which are great, but sometimes when you're in business and you have those qualities, it may crash with the real world business. Because not everything is like you see it all positive and great. It not always turns out that way. So I'm glad that I have a partner that brings some reality sometimes when I'm dreaming too much. What am I good at? Most businesses start because either you have the experience, the job experience, you have worked at it for many years, or because it's something you're good at. So think about, what are you good at? Be creative. I'm not the creative part of our business. My mother is. That lady has ideas 24/7. She wakes up at 2, 3, 4, 5 a.m. and she has ideas. Her brain works all the time. The only bad thing about it is she used to call me every time she had an idea. She forgot if it was 3 a.m. in the morning, and it used to drive me crazy until we had a talk, and I say, if you have a great idea, wait until it's 8 a.m. in the morning. Don't call me before that. Value yourself and your work. That's something that I have learned, that it is important to know that the services that you're offering have a value. A lot of, when we started, there was a company that told us here, we don't need to advertise to the Hispanic community. They buy here because it's cheap. I have to say, I have never go back to them because I don't want them as a client. No, because the money will be nice, but I don't want them as a client anymore. But you have to be able to value your work. And don't be apologetic if you think you're worth this much and they think you're not. Don't be apologetic and say, you know what, this is what the job costs. I am a professional. I know what I'm doing. If you want the service, this is what I have to offer. If you want, go check around, try. If at any point you think that we can work together, we will be more than welcome. Also, sometimes when you're starting in 2004, because we have the newspaper for many years, and we were always giving advice to the companies on how to do their ad. Or they will send us an ad that was translated literally, and it didn't make any sense in Spanish. So we have to go back to the client and say, hey, your ad is not going to work. It's translated, or it's not culturally competent, different stuff. So through that, there was a point with my mother talking that we said, we're always offering this service for free. Why don't we make money out of it? And that's how we started HMC La Agency, which is our second company. And that's basically what I run most now for the past 4 years, is the advertising agency. And we said, yeah, let's do it. So in 2004, we created HMC La Agency. Within 6 months, we created a partnership with Love Communications, a great advertising agency here in Utah. And we were with them for the first 3 years of our company. We broke apart last year. They're still great friends. We're still with a very close relationship. But we decided that it was better to grow our business to be on our own. So we basically have been going through the new experience of being on our own again and starting another business like this. But when I go to the point that I was trying to make, when we started, we wanted to get clients, and we wanted to make ourselves known. And so we have a big company here in Utah that said, we want you to come and work for us and teach us how to reach the Latino market. And we say, great. But then we talk about budget. And their budget for marketing, for advertising, it was ridiculous. And we were like, we discussed it with my mom, and we were going back and forth. We shouldn't take them, but at the same time, it's a great client. It's big. It will give us a name. It will give us an interest. So we decided, you know what? Let's try it. Let's go ahead and do it. We took the client. Then we went into the other part, what are we going to do, what is going to be the messaging, and we ran into problems again with the client. The client wanted a message that it was traditional, but it was traditional for mainstream. It wasn't a traditional thing for Hispanics. So we say, you know what, your message doesn't apply to the Hispanic community. It's not going to work. We need to change it. We came with ideas, and he turned down every single idea that we had. He basically said, you know what, that's my branding. I don't want to move from my branding. That's what it is. Work with it. What we should have done at that point is say, thank you very much. I don't think we are the company for you. But again, we're starting. You pay for your mistakes. And we said, okay, we'll work with that. We'll make it work. And so you need to know your strengths, where you're strong, and what you need to know when something is going to work. And if you have the gut feeling that it's not going to work, you better don't do it. We go ahead and took it 6 months later. We evaluated the account, and them and us decided, you know what, we're not the best company for you, because this is not working. It's not working for you, and it's not working for us. I wish I would have had the courage at the beginning to say, I don't want to take this client, because now I have a client that we worked for 6 months, and I'm pretty sure, even though it was in good terms, that when he hears our name, he's going to say, oh, we worked with them, but it didn't work. Instead, if we would have been smart enough and would be willing to let that client go, we would have been in a better shape, because at least we could say, you know what, they didn't want to take us, we don't know much. So if you have to be willing sometimes to let business go if you have the feeling that it's not going to work. If you have that certainty that it's not going to work, that it's not something you want to get involved with, then follow. Then I always talk about the principle of abundance that goes along with don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of surrounding yourself with people that know more than you. A lot of times, people is afraid, If I'm working at a place right now, if I teach this person what I do, they're going to come and take my place. Or if I have this business, if I teach them what I do, they're going to go and be my competition later. You know what? Don't be afraid. If you can get people who knows more than you, you're going to be able to learn a lot more and apply it to your business. Also, on the principle of abundance, make sure you give back. Give back to your community. Give back to the people that have helped you out. Going back a little bit on my story, they were reading in 2001, I created the first 100% Hispanic Latino team here to play in the state of Utah. Again, it was a hard thing. When we started, they didn't want this team because it was a team of underprivileged kids. Most of them were declared that they will never graduate from high school, that they will probably end up in jail. And obviously they didn't want a team like that to play because it was going to end up in fights and problems. Finally, we got the approval to bring those kids. I went and looked for kids that have soccer talent, but they wouldn't have the opportunities to learn and to be able to showcase their talent in front of scouts from universities or high schools. So I looked for those kids with that talent, and I put them together. I took them when they were 8 years old. Most of them are 16 now. I always say that I don't only have 2 kids, I have like 15 kids more. It has been the most rewarding experience of my life. When we started, I make them sign a contract. They always laugh because they're like, we're not professionals and you're making us sign contract. But it was a very simple contract where they compromised, where they said, you know what, we're going to be good at home. We're going to respect our parents. We're going to keep A and B's at school. If you're in a C, you're on probation. And basically, if you don't improve, you're out of the team. I have to say, of my original kids, I still have 8. And of all the kids that have been in my team, there is only one that ended up in the juvenile system and ended up going to jail. The other ones, they're very good students now. Most of them have a job now because they're 16 and they play for the high school. So basically, last year was the last year that we played together. But I love to think that I made the difference in those kids' life. And anything that you do in your business to help others, trust me, it will help you at the end. And when you give back to your community, I can tell you that these kids changed more my life than I have changed their lives. It is absolutely awesome. I love those kids. Some of those kids still call me when they have problems. They call me when they have problems with their parents. Their parents call me when they have problems with the kids. I certainly turned out to be a family counselor too. But it has been a great experience. It has been the greatest experience of my life. I brought my son, who plays competitive soccer. I actually brought him from a great club like Sparta and took him out and put him to play with these kids. Because I think he also needed to learn that the life that he has is not as easy for other kids. And he made great friends that now they support each other. You need to learn what is urgent and what is a priority. I used to think that if I wasn't there, or if I didn't do everything, things wouldn't happen right. So you need to learn to differentiate what is a priority and what is urgent, because sometimes we get so into the everyday thing that we need to do that we forget if I was still doing everything in the paper and everything in the advertising agency, I couldn't think when my business is going and plan for the future. And you need to be able to balance your life. Some of you may have families here, I imagine. Some of you may be married. Some of you may have kids. One thing that I always do with my kids, because I try to put a lot of hours in my business, I certainly have to sometimes. One thing that I do with my kids, we call soccer the family spirit. My daughter plays competitive soccer. She has played since she was 5. My son has played since he was 8. So one thing that we do together is soccer. They know that I'm always there when they have a game. Regardless, if I have a meeting, I will reschedule my meeting to be at my kids' soccer game. If I really cannot be there, they always complain like for 2 weeks that I wasn't at their soccer game. So I try to be there. But a lot of times it's not how much time we spend with our families or with our kids, it's the quality time that we spend with them. And that is important for you to be able to balance that. It's also important to have time for yourself. I learned that probably 10 years after we started our business, that I needed to take time for myself. Especially being a single mother of 2, I was always running with them, with school, with my business, until the point that I said, you know what, I need a break. So now I love movies. What I do is once a week, I go to the movies. If I have the kids, I ask my mom to take care of the kids. They are old enough to be on their own now, but for the past 5 years, if I want to do something for me that relaxes me, I go to the movies or I turn on the TV, close my door, and I'm not available. And you have to learn that. You have to be able to balance your life. If you dedicate just work for work, you're going to get burned and you're going to hate your life, you're going to hate your work, you're going to feel it's not worth it. So make sure you take time for yourself. I'm a firm believer of this. What you think and what you believe, that's who you are. And maybe that's because I'm an optimistic person, but if you really believe that things will work out, if you really put your faith on it, if you really work hard at it, trust me, 90% of the time it will happen. This is another very important thing. Guard your habits. Bad habits will destroy you, will destroy your business. I have to learn many things. I have to learn to organize my time. I was good at what I did, but I was horrible with time management. I'm still working at it every day. Pray about every difficult problem. You know what? Regardless whether you're LDS, Catholic, most of us believe in a supreme being. Pray about the different aspects of your life. Pray about your business. There's nothing wrong with praying about your business and getting guidance. Exercise. Let's go back to taking time for yourself. This is a big one. When you exercise, you're going to be amazed at how much energy you get. When you think that that you don't have any much more energy, go exercise, and you're going to see that suddenly you're ready to go again. And also, it will clear your mind. Plan the next day before you go home. I can tell you how much that helps. There was some times that I will get to my office, I will do a lot of things, and at the end of the day, it's like, what did I do? I didn't do anything. I don't know what I did with my day. Instead, if you plan the day before, okay, this is what is a priority. This is what is urgent. This is the things that I can do. These are the things that I'm not going to be able to do. Which brings us to this. Do the most important things first. Do the urgent things second. So when you're prioritizing the day before, check that list. What is important? What is urgent? Delegate the things that are urgent but unimportant. And that's a big one because I guess sometimes I'm a little bit egocentric that I think that if I don't do it, it's not going to get done. Learn to delegate. It's amazing how much time it can free for you to be able to think about your business and where you're going, where you are, where are you moving forward. Skip altogether the things that are unimportant and not urgent. And that is also a big thing. When you realize, you know what, maybe I didn't need to do that. Maybe I didn't have to do this, and I could have get rid of that part and have more time. Let me tell you a little bit about the growth of Mundo Hispano. Mundo Hispano grew, like I told you, from 1,000 copies monthly to a 10,000 copy weekly. We are the only certified media, which means we are an audited media. We have an independent company that verify our circulation. We are the only one that has that in Utah, which helps when you're selling advertising. Back in 2005, we created, and keeping up with technology is very important, we created a partnership with KSL, where we are the Spanish portal of KSL. Basically, if you want to see the news that are relevant to the Hispanic community in Spanish, you can go to mymundohispano.com, or you can go to KSL, and from KSL it will link you to our website. Again, if there is things that you don't know, don't be afraid to doing stuff with the people that knows. We knew about the content. They knew about the technology and how to do it, how to put it to work. So it has been a great experience for both of us, for them and for us, this partnership. We, in terms of advertising, our newspaper grows every day. The Hispanic community keeps growing. I don't know how familiar you are, but we are over. Census numbers put us at 274. We know that there is over 300,000 Hispanics in Utah. It keeps growing. One of the reasons why we created the advertising agency, and it's the fact that it's a growing market. You know, the leaders in Utah, companies like Zions Bank, like Intermountain Healthcare, those are companies that had taken a step forward and say, we want to serve this market. Those are part of our clients that we have helped out to create their own Hispanic initiatives, and that have been very successful with it. So when you're looking at your business and how to grow your business, look at the different needs. Look at the market. Be innovative. Right now it's an incredible time of changes with the economy the way it is, with the changes that have been going through. Has been a challenging time in some ways for us, because usually when the economy is not doing that good, the first thing that goes from companies is the advertising. So it affects us both. Our both businesses get affected by it, the newspaper and our advertising agency. So we have to be creative on the ways that we go and sell our product. How do we market ourselves? And like I said, the beginning is hard, but if you're willing to work hard and to pay the price, usually it pays off. This year was the first time of my life that I took a month off vacation, and it survived. I went down to my home country. I took my kids, which had never been in Colombia, and we spent a month there just having fun. So now I get to do what a lot of people tell me when they are starting their business, that they want to do it because you can come and go, and you can actually make more money and work less. I think that that's when you know that you're receiving the fruits of your hard work. And with that, I open it to question and answers. So any questions? Shy group.
How would you feel to get advertising in English?
How do I want? I'm sorry.
How would someone be able to advertise in the newspaper?
In the newspaper, there is two ways. If actually they want to advertise in the website, they have to go through KSL. So if we get a call in the newspaper, that is a good point, because actually there is a very interesting point on the success of Mundo Hispano. Mundo Hispano doesn't have a sales force, somebody going out there and offering the newspaper. The newspaper, during the first 2 years, my mother will go out and sell. After that, we live out of the advertising that come to us, which is very unusual and is a very good position to be in. I would like to have a sales force. That's something that we have been trying to do. We have one person now, but we want to increment that when we're looking at the future of the newspaper, because we live out of the agencies or the people that call the newspaper and say, I want to advertise in Mundo Hispano. We have done a little bit of advertising on trade with the Spanish radio stations, also with KSL, where they basically say, you know, if you want to advertise, call us soon. Any more questions? Yes?
How many people did you have writing for your newspaper when you started it, and then how many people do you have writing
When we started, it was my mother and I, basically. We will cover the stories, we will write the stories, we will do the layout, and if somebody remember, probably 15 years ago, there was not the technology that it is today. So we had to actually copy, cut, and paste. We will do the layout of the newspaper in the computer, but then we will have to print the pages, cut, and paste in a big format that they gave us at the printing. So it was a lot of work to do. Now we have 7 reporters. We have 4 people that do the delivery. And we have my managing editor, which is my right hand, and does most of the job, to be honest. On the newspaper, I don't do much now. I learned to delegate. And he does much of the job right now. I'm dedicated mostly to the advertising agency. Yes?
Does most of the revenue come from advertising, or does it also come from subscriptions, or what's the tax stream of revenue?
Actually, 99% of our income come from advertising. We have a very small number of subscriptions with a free distribution of papers in stores. So our subscription base is very, very small. And within the advertising, 90% of our advertising come from national companies. That's another thing that is very different from other Spanish newspapers here, because nowadays we were the first one, we're the oldest, the largest, but now there is about 7 Spanish newspapers in Utah. And of those, probably one of our biggest differences is the fact that most of our advertising come from national companies. Yes?
I'm curious to know how well you know your business. What's the closest place to here that you can pick up the newspaper?
The closest place to here, to BYU, actually, you know what? We used to have the newspaper here at BYU on campus. But then I don't know what happened. And all right. That would be great. But the closest place to here is probably Gualberto's, I think it's called, by where Food for Less used to be. I don't know how it's called now. That's probably your closest place.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I do that route. Actually, we had somebody quit last winter. And that's one thing that also when you have your business, they quit from night to day. No very nice thing to do, but hey, I actually had to come. I remember it was snowing like crazy, but I had to do this route, the Provo route. Any more questions?
Can you talk a little bit about, had your mother had experience printing a paper before? I mean, how did you know how to go about printing a paper the first time?
Actually, she didn't. My ex-husband had in Colombia, his family had a neon sign company. And so he knew a little bit of design. My mother knew a little bit of journalism. So he designed our first newspaper. My mother knew about journalism, but that was it. And so we started just researching, doing research. You know, we started looking for printers. Who will print our newspaper? How much it will cost? Doing all the homework, and that's how we started. In fact, the name of Mundo Hispano was born at the BYU library because we came here and we were looking what Spanish newspapers existed. There was La Opinión in California. There was La Raza in New York. Those were basically the only ones that were here at the library, and we're like, okay, what name can we give our newspaper? And we started looking around, and we were walking about the library, and then suddenly my mom says, what do you think about Mundo Hispano, which means Hispanic world? And I'm like, you know what, that sounds great. So that's how it was born. Also, my mother created an organization based on our experience because we didn't know. She had a great background in business. She had a great background in banking from our country. She worked for an American bank, so she thought, hey, piece of cake. But when we moved here, we realized that it was very different the way we do business in our countries and the laws to do business in our countries than it is to do business here. So we had to learn all that. My mother created 6 years ago an organization called the BYU Business Center, where they teach Hispanics and minorities how to create their own business. And that was born out of basically our own experience, because when we had hard times, they had resources, but we felt shy to go. They didn't speak our language. You feel more comfortable speaking in your own language. We're like, they're going to think we're stupid, And so it was that thing. So based on our experience, my mother created that nonprofit that in the last year they had to open 265 companies. That gives you an idea, and 99% are Hispanics. That gives you an idea of how much this market is growing and why companies need to reach to this market. Any more questions? Anything else that you want to know?
How did you fund your company?
What we did, basically, we used the money that we had brought from our country to start the newspaper. So we funded out of our own money. Now, the agency was a little bit different. We created a partnership, like I said, with Love Communications. They had the money, we had the knowledge, the know-how, and it was a win-win situation for everybody at that point.
How long did it take for your paper to start paying for itself? How long did you have to fund it?
You know what? I always say that the newspaper is a monster, that it doesn't matter how much you start making, you always put more money into it. No, we make the money out of the advertising agency. It pays itself from the point that it pays the employees, it pays the printing, it pays everything. We don't have to put money into it, but we don't get money out of it either. A lot of people tell us, why do you keep a business for 15 years if you're not getting money out of it? And one of the reasons is because we believe that's a great service to our community. So even though we don't make the money on it, we keep it because we know we're providing a service. And we're keeping people in business, we're keeping people employees.
For your other business.
And what's the foundation for our other business? Any more questions? Come on. Yes?
What are your growth drivers?
I'm sorry?
Your growth opportunities, what are you looking to grow?
We're looking to grow. Let me talk a little bit about the growth with the newspaper. One of our goals for this year is actually to start a more aggressive sales force, because like I said, 90% of our business in the newspaper comes from national companies. So we haven't explored the local market at all. So that is one of our goals of growth with the newspaper, is to actually get a local sales force that can go and sell the newspaper here locally. With the advertising agency, our goal, which was a very interesting after you break out a partnership, it's like you're starting all over again on your own. So it has been a very interesting year. I have loved it, but it has been very interesting. And our goal with our advertising agency is actually to get more regional and national clients. We have the top clients here, the top companies here in Utah are our clients already. So the only way for us to keep growing is for them to increment their budgets, which with the way the economy is right now is not very practical, or for us to start looking for regional and national accounts. During the month of September, we landed our first national account. It's a Utah-based company, but it's a national account. They have actually markets in the United States, in Europe, and Canada, and they decided, you know what, maybe this is a target that we should go after. So we are in the process of launching during the month of November. We're going to be launching their product in Florida, California, and Texas. And we're already putting our plan together for next year, where we're going to launch Puerto Rico, New York, Chicago, and Arizona. So, and we're in the process of signing our second national client. So that is nice.
You mentioned that when you started that you found newspapers in Los Angeles and New York, and then you started one here. How many do all main cities, all big cities have Spanish newspapers now? And are any of them, are they all local, or are some expanding to other cities? Is there interest in you expanding?
That is an interesting question. Now there is La Opinión and La Raza, that were the oldest newspapers, Hispanic newspapers in the United States, created a partnership where they are going around and buying small Spanish newspapers that have a certain amount of revenue. So they basically, with their partnership and their new company, they have bought about 20 newspapers, Spanish newspapers around the nation. They approached us about 5 years ago, and they wanted to buy our newspaper. But we have very different points of view. They're very liberal. It doesn't go with our principles, so we didn't feel comfortable selling the newspaper to somebody who wouldn't uphold the values that we have created that business with. So we decided not to sell. It would have been a great business decision probably, but sometimes you do things because you believe in what you're doing, and sometimes it may not be the best business decision, but I can sleep better at night. So it is interesting, that factor. They have papers. What you're going to find is two things. There is this conglomerate of newspapers that they're buying, and there is also American companies like the LA Times buying newspapers. Even here in Utah, the NAC created a company and created their own newspaper, which is called Out of Utah. They first did something that it was called Fronteras, which is a syndicated newspaper. They tried it for 2 years, but it was unsuccessful. So they decided to follow our footsteps and create a newspaper that was more local, that the issues were more relevant. So they launched this second initiative at the beginning of 2008. It has been a little bit more successful, but people sometimes, and the Latino community is very loyal. That is one of the things that company loves about dealing with this market, is the fact that they are very loyal. If you treat them good, they stay with you forever. So actually, the experience that we have with the newspaper is that the community felt like, okay, here is our newspaper who has been around for so long, and instead of they help them out, they're bringing their own product to try to take them out of the market. So actually for us it worked out great, because we had the support and the people start saying, okay, no, actually what can we do to help you succeed? So that was a nice experience. Anything else? Nothing? Okay, thank you very much for your time.
Sandra.